The evening was cold, the kind that seeped into bones and made the world feel heavy. The rich man stood alone at his son's grave, his expensive coat doing little to shield him from the grief that clung to him like a shadow. It had been a year since the accident, but the pain was still fresh, still sharp. He came here often, talking to the headstone as if his boy could hear him, as if somehow, the words would bridge the gap between this world and the next. He was about to leave when he heard it, a soft, shuddering breath. At first, he thought it was the wind, but then he saw her. A small girl, no older than 10, huddled against a nearby tree, shivering in a thin, tattered sweater. Her lips were blue, her arms wrapped tightly around herself as she stared at the grave with wide, hollow eyes. The man frowned. What was a child doing here, alone, in this freezing weather? He stepped closer, and the girl flinched, pressing herself against the tree like a cornered animal. "Hey," he said softly, crouching down to her level. "Are you okay?" She didn't answer. Her gaze flickered between him and the grave, her breath coming in quick, shallow bursts. "You're freezing," he murmured, shrugging off his coat. He held it out to her, but she didn't take it. Instead, she whispered something so quiet he almost missed it. "I'm sorry." The words hit him like a punch. Sorry? For what? Before he could ask, the girl's legs gave out. She collapsed into the snow, her body too weak from cold and hunger to hold itself up anymore. The man acted without thinking, he scooped her into his arms, his heart pounding. She weighed almost nothing, her small frame fragile against his chest. "Hold on," he said, rushing toward his car. "Just hold on." As he drove toward the nearest hospital, his mind raced. Who was she? Why was she at his son's grave? And why did she say she was sorry? The girl's fingers clutched weakly at his sleeve, her eyes half closed. Then, with the last of her strength, she whispered something that made his blood run colder than the winter air. "I saw the accident. It was my fault." The car screeched to a halt. The man turned to her, his breath caught in his throat. What did she just say? The hospital lights were too bright, too harsh. The rich man paced outside the emergency room, his mind spinning. The girl's words echoed in his ears, "I saw the accident. It was my fault." What did that mean? His son had died in a car crash, a hit and run. The police had found no witnesses, no leads. Just a broken bicycle and a lifeless body on the side of the road. And now, this shivering girl, barely alive herself, was saying she was connected to it. A doctor stepped out, pulling him from his thoughts. "She's stable," the woman said, wiping her hands. "Malnourished, severely dehydrated, and suffering from exposure. But she'll live." The man let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "Can I see her?" The doctor hesitated. "She's asleep now. But, she asked for you before she drifted off." Asked for him? His chest tightened. He needed answers. The doctor led him to a small room where the girl lay under a mountain of blankets, looking even smaller than before. Her face was pale, her dark hair fanned out on the pillow. Machines beeped softly beside her. He sat in the chair next to the bed, watching her breathe. Who was she? Where were her parents? Why had she been at the cemetery? And most importantly, what did she know about his son's death? Hours passed. The man didn't move. Nurses came and went, checking vitals, adjusting IVs. Outside the window, the sky darkened. Then, a whisper. "You stayed." The girl's eyes were open now, watching him with a mix of fear and something else, guilt? Relief? "Of course I stayed," he said, leaning forward. "You scared me back there." She looked down at her hands, picking at the edge of the blanket. "I'm sorry." There it was again. That word. Sorry. He took a slow breath. "You said something in the car," about the accident. About it being your fault. Her fingers stilled. A tear slipped down her cheek. I didn't mean to, she choked out. I was just trying to get away. Get away from what? She shook her head, pressing her lips together like she was afraid the truth would spill out if she opened them. The man softened his voice. You're safe now. Whatever happened, you can tell me. For a long moment, she was silent. Then, in a voice so quiet he had to strain to hear it, she said. The man who hit your son, he was chasing me. The air left his lungs. What? The words hung in the air like a storm cloud. The man who hit your son, he was chasing me. The rich man's hands clenched into fists without him realizing it. His throat felt tight, his heartbeat loud in his ears. This child, this stranger, was tied to his son's death in a way he never could have imagined. He forced himself to breathe. To think. Start from the beginning, he said, keeping his voice steady. Who was chasing you? Why? The girl pulled the blanket higher, as if it could shield her from the memory. Her voice trembled. I was at the park that day. Just, sitting there. A man came up to me. He said he knew my mom, that he'd take me to her. She swallowed hard. But I didn't believe him. My mom's been gone for years. The man's stomach twisted. He knew where this was going. You ran. She nodded. He grabbed my arm. I bit him, got loose. Then he started chasing me, really chasing me. I just ran into the street without looking. Her breath hitched. That's when the car came. It swerved to miss me, but... Her voice broke. She didn't need to finish. The man saw it in his mind like a nightmare, his son, riding his bike home from soccer practice. A car veering wildly. A child darting across the road. And then, impact. His vision blurred. All this time, he'd pictured a drunk driver. A reckless teenager. Not this. Never this. The girl was crying silently now, tears streaming down her face. I tried to help him after. But the man dragged me back into his car. Said if I told anyone, he'd... She trailed off, shaking. The man reached for her hand without thinking. Her fingers were ice cold. Where is this man now? He asked, his voice low. She shook her head. I don't know. I ran away from him last week. Been hiding since then. She looked up at him, eyes wide with a fear no child should know. I went to your son's grave because I wanted to say sorry. To him. But I was too scared. The machines beeped steadily in the silence that followed. The man stared at the wall, trying to process it all. This girl wasn't just a witness, she was a victim too. And the real monster was still out there. He made a decision then. You're not going back on the streets, he said firmly. You're coming home with me. The girl's eyes widened. But... No arguments. We'll call the police. Tell them everything. He hesitated, then added, and... I want you to know something. She waited, tense. What happened to my son? He took a deep breath. That wasn't your fault. It was his. The man who chased you. For the first time since he'd found her, the girl's shoulders relaxed, just a little. Like a weight had been lifted. But as the man stepped out to call the police, his mind raced with darker thoughts. Who was this man? And what if he came looking for the girl again? The police station smelled like stale coffee and old paper. The rich man sat stiffly in a plastic chair, watching the girl, now wrapped in a borrowed sweatshirt 2 sizes too big, answer the detective's questions in a voice barely above a whisper. He had a tattoo, a snake on his neck. The detective, a tired-looking man with salt and pepper hair, scribbled in his notepad. And you're sure he said he knew your mother? The girl nodded, picking at the frayed edge of the sweatshirt sleeve. But my mom died when I was 6. He was lying. The rich man leaned forward. You said you've been living on the streets. Before that? A shadow crossed her face. Foster homes. Ran away from the last one. She didn't elaborate, but the way her fingers dug into her arms told him enough. The detective sighed, rubbing his temples. We'll check missing persons reports, see if anyone matching your description was reported kidnapped. In the meantime. A phone rang. Another officer leaned in, murmuring something that made the detective's eyebrows shoot up. He excused himself, returning minutes later with a file. Well, he said, flipping it open, this complicates things. Inside was a grainy surveillance photo, a man with a snake tattoo dragging a small figure into a car. The date stamp, the day of the hit and run. The rich man's blood turned to ice. That's her. The detective nodded grimly. Turns out this guy's got a record. Human trafficking. We've been after him for months. The girl went very still. The rich man reached over without thinking, covering her trembling hand with his own. You're safe now, he said, more to himself than her. But as they left the station later, the girl kept glancing over her shoulder. The rich man pretended not to notice, until she suddenly froze, her entire body going rigid. Across the street, a dark car idled. Just for a moment. Then it sped away. The rich man tightened his grip on the girl's shoulder as they hurried to his car. His eyes darted to the rearview mirror every few seconds, watching for any sign of the dark sedan. The girl sat curled up in the passenger seat, arms wrapped around her knees, her breathing shallow. You saw him, didn't you? He asked quietly. She gave the smallest nod. I think so. His knuckles whitened on the steering wheel. The trafficker knew where they were now. Knew the girl had talked to the police. That made her, and maybe even him, a target. They drove in silence until his mansion came into view, its iron gates looming like a fortress. He hadn't brought anyone here since his son's death. The place had felt too empty, too full of ghosts. But now, for the first time in a year, the weight of its walls didn't suffocate him. They felt like protection. As they stepped inside, the girl's eyes widened at the high ceilings, the polished floors. She hovered near the doorway, as if afraid to leave footprints. You hungry? He asked. She hesitated, then nodded. The kitchen was spotless, barely used. He rummaged through the fridge, throwing together a simple meal, sandwiches, fruit, a glass of warm milk. The girl ate like she hadn't seen food in weeks, which she probably hadn't. He watched her, thoughts racing. The police had promised extra patrols near his home, but would that be enough? This man, this monster, had already taken his son indirectly. He wouldn't let him take this girl too. His phone buzzed. The detective. We ran her photo through the system. Got a hit. Call me. Excusing himself, he stepped into the hall. The detective's voice was tense. Turns out she was reported missing, but not as a kidnapping. Her last foster family filed it after she ran away 3 months ago. A pause. But here's the thing. That family? They're connected. Connected how? To the trafficker. We think they were feeding him kids. The rich man's stomach turned. No wonder she'd run. Returning to the kitchen, he found the girl staring at a family photo on the wall, him, his late wife, his son. She touched the glass lightly, just over the boy's face. You look like him, she said softly. He blinked. What? Your son. You have the same eyes. Something cracked in his chest. No one had said that to him since the funeral. Before he could respond, the doorbell rang. They both froze. Through the security screen, a woman in a police uniform stood on the porch. But something felt off. The girl's breath hitched. "That's not the detective from earlier," she whispered. And then the rich man saw it, the faint outline of a snake tattoo peeking above the officer's collar. The imposter smiled directly into the camera. "Open up. We just want to talk." The rich man's body moved before his mind could process the danger. In one fluid motion, he shoved the girl behind him and slammed his palm against the security system's panic button. A silent alarm blared to life, connected directly to the police station. The imposter's smile vanished. "Last chance," the fake officer growled through the intercom. "Open the door, or we'll..." The rich man didn't wait for the threat to finish. He yanked the girl down the hallway just as the first gunshot splintered the front door's reinforced glass. "Upstairs. Now." They took the steps two at a time, the girl's small hand gripping his like a vice. Behind them, boots kicked through the shattered entrance. His son's old bedroom was the safest place, a fortress within a fortress. He locked the heavy door behind them, then dragged the dresser across it for good measure. The girl stood frozen in the center of the room, staring at the soccer trophies still lining the shelves. A crash downstairs. Then another. Closer. The rich man wrenched open the nightstand drawer and pulled out a handgun he hadn't touched in years. His fingers remembered the weight, the cold metal. "Stay behind me," he ordered. But the girl wasn't listening. She'd gone pale, her eyes locked on something outside the window. A second figure was scaling the mansion's outer wall. The rich man's blood turned to ice. They were surrounded. Then, sirens. Distant at first, then screaming up the driveway. The girl gasped as red and blue lights flashed across the walls. Downstairs, shouts. A scramble of footsteps. The rich man risked a glance out the window just in time to see the fake officer and his accomplice sprinting toward the tree line as 3 police cruisers skidded to a halt. But it wasn't over. The detective from earlier burst into the bedroom minutes later, his face grim. "They got away. For now." He turned to the girl. "But we found something you need to see." At the station, they showed her a photo. The girl went rigid. "That's him," she whispered. "The man who chased me." But... Her finger trembled as she pointed to another face in the picture. "That's my old foster father." The detective exchanged a look with the rich man. "We think we know why they want you so badly, kid. You saw something, didn't you? Something big." The girl's silence was answer enough. The rich man knelt before her. "Whatever it is, you can tell us now. No one will hurt you again." Tears spilled down her cheeks as she reached into her tattered sweater pocket and pulled out a crumpled piece of paper no one had noticed before. "I stole this from his office," she said. "Names. Dates. Places." The detective unfolded it. His face went slack. It was a ledger. A ledger that could bring down an entire trafficking ring. The police station erupted into controlled chaos. Detectives swarmed around the ledger like wolves on a fresh scent, snapping photos and making urgent calls. The rich man watched from the corner, one hand resting protectively on the girl's shoulder as she shrank into the chair beside him. The detective returned, his face grave. "This changes everything," he said in a hushed voice. "There are dates, drop points, even code names for high-profile clients." He glanced at the girl with something like awe. "Do you understand what you've done, kid? You've got enough here to put these monsters away forever." The girl didn't answer. She was staring at a particular name halfway down the page, her breath coming in short bursts. The rich man followed her gaze. "What is it?" Her finger trembled as she pointed. That's the police officer who came to my foster home every month." A chill ran down his spine. The detective's face darkened. "Are you sure?" She nodded, her small body shaking. He always brought candy. Told me I was pretty. The rich man's stomach turned. The corruption went deeper than they'd imagined. The detective swore under his breath. We need to move you both somewhere safe. Now. As they were hurried out a back exit into an unmarked car, the girl clutched the rich man's sleeve. Where are we going? Somewhere they'll never find you, the detective promised. But the safe house wasn't what the rich man expected. It was a modest cabin deep in the woods, the kind of place that didn't exist on any map. As the detective showed them inside, the rich man noticed the way his hand kept drifting toward his gun. Something wasn't right. His suspicions grew when the detective made an excuse to step outside. Through the window, the rich man saw him pacing, phone pressed to his ear, having a conversation he clearly didn't want overheard. The girl noticed too. He's lying, she whispered. The rich man's pulse pounded in his ears. They'd walked right into a trap. He made a show of yawning. Getting late. I'll take the couch downstairs. As soon as the detective left, promising to return at dawn, the rich man sprang into action. He found what he needed in the kitchen, a knife, some canned food, matches. We're leaving, he told the girl as he stuffed supplies into a backpack. Her eyes widened. But the detective said, that man out there isn't who he claims to be. He knelt before her. I need you to trust me one more time. She studied his face for a long moment. Then nodded. They slipped out the back window just as headlights cut through the trees. Not one car, 3. Doors slammed. Voices carried on the cold night air. The rich man recognized one immediately, the fake officer from his mansion. The girl's breath hitched. They found us. He gripped her hand tighter. Run. The forest swallowed them whole as shouts erupted behind them. Branches whipped at their faces as they crashed through the undergrowth. Somewhere in the distance, a gunshot rang out. The girl stumbled. The rich man caught her just before she fell. Keep going, he urged. But as they broke into a clearing, headlights blinded them. A car skidded to a halt. The passenger door flew open. Get in. A familiar face stared back, the detective's partner, the one who'd been suspiciously absent all day. In her outstretched hand, a badge, and a photo of the girl as a toddler, held by a woman who looked just like her. Your mother wasn't just a victim, the officer said urgently. She was one of us. And she died protecting this case. The girl's legs gave out. The rich man barely caught her as the world as they knew it shattered. The car tore through the night, the officer's words hanging in the air like gun smoke. The girl sat frozen in the back seat, staring at the photograph of the woman who looked like her, but different. Stronger. Wearing a police uniform. My mother? The words came out cracked, disbelieving. Officer Vasquez kept her eyes on the rearview mirror, watching for pursuers. She went undercover 6 years ago to infiltrate the trafficking ring. When they discovered her identity, a muscle in her jaw twitched. She made sure you were placed in protective custody first. The rich man watched the girl's face crumple. All these years thinking she'd been abandoned, when the truth was her mother had died a hero. Gunfire erupted behind them. A bullet shattered the back windshield. Hold on. Vasquez wrenched the wheel, sending them skidding onto a dirt road. The rich man threw his body over the girls as glass rained down. The safe house was an abandoned ranger station deep in the mountains. Vasquez barricaded the door while the rich man helped the shaking girl to a cot. Outside, engines growled in the darkness. We've got maybe 10 minutes, Vasquez said, checking her weapon. Backup's on the way but we might not last that long, the rich man finished. The girl suddenly stood, her small frame trembling but her voice steady. Then we make sure it wasn't for nothing. She grabbed a pen and began scribbling on her arm, names, dates from memory. In case we don't make it. Someone needs to know. The rich man's throat tightened. She was just a child, yet braver than most adults he knew. A crash came from downstairs. Heavy boots on wooden steps. Vasquez took position by the door. When I say go, you run to the lookout tower and lock yourselves in. The rich man opened his mouth to argue. The door exploded inward. Chaos. Gunfire. Vasquez went down clutching her leg. The trafficker filled the doorway, snake tattoo glistening with sweat, his smile monstrous. Well well. The runaway, the rich man, and a traitor cop. He leveled his gun. Say hello to mommy for. A single gunshot rang out. The trafficker staggered, confusion spreading across his face as a red bloom appeared on his chest. He collapsed to reveal Officer Vasquez behind him, smoke curling from her raised weapon. Go, she screamed. They ran. Up the rickety stairs, the girl's small hand in his, bullets biting at their heels. The tower door slammed shut just as headlights flooded the clearing below, dozens of police cars, sirens wailing. It was over in minutes. Dawn found them sitting on the tower steps, wrapped in shock blankets, watching as the traffickers' men were loaded into squad cars. The real detective limped over, his face grim but satisfied. We got them all, he said. Thanks to you too. The girl looked at the rich man, then did something unexpected, she hugged him. Not a quick embrace, but the kind of hug that said everything words couldn't. He held her just as tightly, realizing with a start that this was the first time he'd held anyone since his son died. 3 months later, the courtroom erupted in applause as the judge sentenced the last defendant. The girl, now wearing a new yellow dress, her hair neatly braided, sat between the rich man and Officer Vasquez. Afterward, as they walked down the courthouse steps, Vasquez cleared her throat. There's something we need to discuss. About guardianship. The rich man's heart stuttered. He'd known this moment would come, but... I want to stay with him, the girl said quietly, slipping her hand into his. Vasquez smiled. I thought you might say that. She handed the rich man an official-looking envelope. Adoption papers. If you're willing. The rich man knelt until he was eye level with the girl. Are you sure? I'm not. I wasn't the best father before. The girl touched the photo pinned to her dress, her mother in uniform. But you are now. Epilogue. The first day of school found the girl hesitating outside her new classroom. The rich man, no, her father now, squeezed her shoulder. Scared? She shook her head, adjusting her backpack. Just thinking, Mom would be proud, right? He kissed her forehead. So proud. As she walked into the classroom, head held high, the rich man felt something unfamiliar, peace. The ghosts of his past would always be with him, but now, so was she. And that was enough.